Welcome back. This is Riley Davison with Bravo Zulu Radio, and I thank you very much for being here. I really wanted the opportunity to bring you this dynamic lady. I saw her in the San Antonio Beacon, and I thought that it would be perfect for her to have this opportunity to bring you her story and her task that she is bringing to bear within the San Antonio and Bexar County community. This is Kayla Moilanen. Her nonprofit organization is called For Her. And so take it away. Tell us all about what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for just having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here. I'm a San Antonio native. Love my city. Love the work that I do. I felt called to ministry at a young age and eventually got to actually live out what I'm doing now, which is working with women and now also teen girls, and our whole mission is to prevent sexual exploitation and support survivors. And it's a big job. There's a lot of pieces to it. We started off actually in December of 2011 just as an outreach project. We weren't even an organization or a ministry then, but we reached out to women working in the sex industry. And through that work, that one-time project, it kind of turned into full-time work and a bigger job for more people to be able to help with, and linking arms with churches and reaching really women who are just in a point in an area of pain. And
Right.
So kind of peeling back the layers and understanding what leads a woman to working in a strip club or into sex work, and more often than not, it's not by choice. It's often a lack of choices, not
Economic and from the family. So I'm interested to know what the reception was. How well was your approach taken?
Surprisingly, very well.
Really?
Yeah, I was shocked by the reception that we received just even from the first night that we went on outreach back in December of 2011. The women were very receptive, almost in disbelief that someone cared about them. Yeah, and took the time, because they're so stigmatized, and the work they do is stigmatized.
Sure.
As, just women making bad choices. And there's a lot more underneath that. There's a lot of reasons why women are working in these places, and like I said, it's a combination of issues. It's usually a backstory laced with a lot of pain,
Sure.
Childhood sexual abuse, a lack of support system, and a lack of opportunity to transform their lives. A lot of them are single moms, so this is their way of supporting their children financially. And especially if you have a history of sexual abuse and you kind of learn to commoditize your body, and understand that my body is a way for me to survive, then it becomes also a way to help your children survive.
What a shame. So obviously then we've got a situation where education hasn't worked for whatever reason, and now that it seems like that's the only avenue. I'm interested. So did you go from strip club to strip club? I mean, because I can imagine the owners wouldn't be very receptive, even if the ladies were. I mean, how did you, knock, 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 we're here to help,
Surprisingly, the managers are very receptive.
Really?
Were very receptive to us. So I learned a lot through this whole experience. It really changed and shaped the way that I view ministry differently than I had coming into it. I learned a lot about, everyone needs support and love and to be seen and heard. Even these managers that are working at the strip club that, most people would easily write off. And, but somehow I think they connected with, this is something good that they can be a part of just by opening the door and allowing us to be there.
Okay.
So
Wow.
It's pretty incredible.
That is incredible. So definitely a service-oriented type of an approach. I mean, you're there simply to help other individuals, other human beings, to actually make something of themselves, where then in essence they're not, and wasting time and wasting life.
Yeah. There's a lot of unrealized potential there, and usually when you have adults who have childhood trauma that have never been able to deal with that trauma
Right.
from their past.
Right.
It stunts their emotional, psychological development. And so you kind of stay in this state of permanence, right? Of not really moving beyond the pain of your past if you don't have a healthy way to deal with it, if you don't have a good church to wrap their arms around you, if you don't have a counselor to wrap your arms around you, or your family, your friends, that community. And I know firsthand as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and of rape, that for me, it was really my community that made the difference to help me get beyond that point. And so that's really what I saw as a connection between me and the women working in these clubs, or just women in general who had experienced some sort of sexual abuse or sexual exploitation, is the community is what made the difference. And it's someone giving you a chance at a job, even though you may lack experience or you have gaps in your resume. It's someone welcoming you into your small group, even if you don't feel like you fit there. There's a lot of ways that community was so crucial and important to me as I kind of went through my own healing journey, and through the help of God and my family and my church and people who cared. That just made a world of difference. And so today, we don't just reach out to women working in the industry, we also reach women who are at risk, as well as moving upstream and reaching teens who are high risk. We have a newest program in partnership with Haley Murphy High School here in San Antonio, working with teen mothers who are, they're top of the list as far as high risk. And I also was a teen mom. So that's a connection for me to that work and helping prevent, sexual exploitation, and prevent someone from going down that path in the future.
So this is not only just a calling for you that you felt like, I want to go out and help people. This is a courageous effort on your part to make the admission that you just did, and then to use that, turn it around, and use it as something as that catalyst for you to be able to reach other people. And now I think you hit the spot, and it's what I know to be the case, is that if we can use education to help people prevent these types of situations, not just here in this particular instance, but in all different facets of our life, if we can have that education, then that's going to help us that much more.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. A lot of what happens in our world happens because people don't know that they have other options.
Right.
And so knowledge really is power in that sense. And, God gave us a brain and to absorb information and to use. And if we can share what we've learned and our own experiences and our own failings or struggles with someone else who's coming up behind us, we can prevent.
Absolutely. Well, you see, my daughter's here, and I do. She's very young, and already teaching her photography and skills like that. But I wanted her to be here, and she had a particular top on, and it was kind of less than flattering. And I said, well, you had to wear your best clothes for me today? And she said, well, this is really comfortable. And I said, yeah, but I'd like for you to put on something nicer. And she goes, okay, well, like I'm going to go meet somebody really important. And I said, well, you know what? We're about to find out. And I handed her the magazine, and I said, this is who we're going to go meet. And she said, oh, okay. So it's important for her to understand from her age now that there are situations that she needs to be careful of. She can't be that, we used to say with my oldest son that he never met a stranger, and we had to teach him, you can't be like that. It's a shame to have that mindset to say, okay, you can't be all friendly all the time. You've got to have some reservation to you for your own self-preservation and your protection. And that's the world that we live in, And so we were talking briefly when we started, and this week, there was a gentleman that took his own life, as opposed to answering for the heinous situation that he put young ladies in, and actually allowing so-called Dr. Larry Nasser to conduct the crimes that he did for over a decade. And when you've got a situation like that, when the manipulation and the exploitation is endemic to a particular area, I mean, that's just got to make your job that much more difficult.
It really does. And, this is one area that we are starting to shed more light on as an organization is, sexual exploitation doesn't only live in a strip club. That is just the most obvious place that it can live is in the sex industry. But sexual exploitation can happen when any person abuses their position of power for sexual gratification for themselves, or that can happen in the workplace with a boss and someone who works under that boss. That can happen with a doctor and a patient, with a coach and a team player, or a teacher and a student. And
the governor and the people that assist him. Yeah,
exactly. Any positions of power. And that's why we have to be so informed about how can we equip our children with healthy boundaries, understanding what's acceptable, how to protect themselves, and understand that any abuse that ever takes place is never, ever, ever a person's fault. Like that is so important. And there's so much shame that comes with having lived through that type of experience. And even if you know that, mentally you understand, okay, this isn't my fault, but you feel, it still brings up all of those feelings of shame, because that's just, we're built to, that's not okay. So our body's going to feel that reaction, but we have to answer to that, and we have to speak to that and say, no, like it's not your fault. And
but at the same time, we do need to teach the young ladies, modesty and how to conduct themselves, so they're not, placing themselves in a situation where an outcome could be adverse. Like we were talking about the one particular pop singer that I read about, where the headline was, she wore low jeans in the back to show off her underwear. And when I mentioned it to my daughter, and she said, "Oh, that all started with Nicki Minaj, and that's going back to 2010." And so you've got this situation where supposedly, I guess, ladies are showing off their underwear since 2010 now. That I wasn't aware of the fad, but she was. And these are things that, it just makes our lives so much different than it used to be.
I think it's a difficult discussion, and I think when it comes to what women wear, I think the rule of thumb is respecting your body, and a woman, that may be a different measuring stick for different women based on how they feel most comfortable within their own body and in their own skin and their clothing. I think it is important to note that if any kind of sexual advance or something happens, like a man is still responsible at the end of the day for his own actions, and that cannot be carried by the weight of, or that can't be carried by a teen, a child, or a woman even, because then it means sexual assault or sexual violence falls on the responsibility of the woman. And for me, I have just seen that play out in a bad way. Right. So I think it's important. I think self-respect, I'm all for that. I think respecting your body and, having good boundaries for yourself, understanding, the way that you dress is, it's more about the motivations, I think, for how we wear our clothes than anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, and I was going to go there next, is that, yes, and I need to make sure that I train my daughters, but the very first thing I did was train my sons.
Yeah.
And let them know that, you're responsible for everything that goes on, and, this is what I won't tolerate, and this is how, not how you're going to come back and say, oh, look, this is what I've done. Because at the end of the day, I absolutely agree. It has to be the responsibility of the man to stand up and be, somebody that's forthright and conducting himself in a proper way.
Yeah. And I think that, to that point, like, you're absolutely right. Every person is agency over themselves. Absolutely. So at the end of the day, they are responsible. And that part of the conversation is so important, right, that we're not just having these conversations with women about sexual violence, but also with men about the same issue, and just how we respect one another. It's a two-way street, and so both have to be part of the conversation. And
well, I realized many years ago now that I started to categorize the different through emergency management. I started to categorize the different events that I would see, and as I went through and I was placing them when I was using Twitter for that, and I would start to label each incident. And by the time I was into it for months, and I finally realized there's only two issues that come up: it's resources and education. And sometimes you don't have the resources that you need to be able to take care of something. But other than that, almost 80% of the time, we were talking about situations that education would have prevented. And that's exactly the situation here.
Yes. Yeah. Education can do so much for us and get us out of a world of mess and a lot of trauma and a lot of pain and a lot of, instead of having to repair, repairing of the breach, which, God's word talks about. And that's, but if we can just prevent it from ever happening to begin with, that's definitely.
Well, you actually mentioned what other nonprofit folks have mentioned, ACEs, the adverse childhood experience. And so when you've got that, and then life hands you defeat after defeat, and then you're not sure how to deal with it, and you don't have the, like you said, the support system to be able to hold on to. Now you've got a situation where it's okay. Wait a minute, where do I go and how do I get there? And unfortunately, in our system, everything revolves around money, and so that economic decision many times is what drives people to that decision.
Yeah, exactly. That combination of not that lack of resources and that need for resources, right? And then you see the disparity in social classes, and more often than not, someone who is participating or a patron in a strip club or in the sex industry is someone who has resources, who is then dispersing the resources to someone who's desperately in need. So that's that power struggle and the position of power. Someone who has the money and the resources and someone who desperately needs it might make choices or might make decisions that they wouldn't otherwise make if they didn't feel so much financial pressure, right? To just survive for them and their children. So that disparity is massive. And so if we can equip people and women and children with tools to become self-sustaining, then we can prevent sexual exploitation.
Well, I know that I've seen that in an area, you take a well-to-do area, and as soon as the strip clubs start to come into that area, the entire, all around that area, that begins to deteriorate because of the class of people that it includes, and just that presence changes things. Even though a lot of those businesses they don't become active until later in the afternoon. So there are 9 to 5s that operate around them and seemingly have no connection. But in essence, now you've got a situation where you've got a late night, evening, and a whole different clientele of people. It's as if I was told many years ago that there's two San Antonios. There's a San Antonio that stays up during the day, and there's just the San Antonio that stays up at night. And when you start looking at that night culture, it's different. There are different folks that operate in at that time. So you started out with the strip clubs, and so now you've gravitated towards trying to get the message out to a broader public. What's the format now? How do you do that? First of all, there's, obviously, a fantastic write-up in the Beacon that I read.
Thank you. Thank you. So we still do outreach. It's been kind of touch and go since COVID.
Sure.
We, instead of going to the strip clubs, we've been going to women's doorsteps and teens doorsteps and dropping off care packages. We're also providing counseling, both in person and remote counseling. We're also about to start up some classes and online workshops for women. We've done some actually just leading up into January. We provided digital literacy classes. So helping women, add to their repertoire of skills of, hey, this is a marketable skill to learn these specific apps and understand how these different, applications work and how you can transfer that skill into the workplace.
Sure. Are you working in tandem with any other nonprofits?
We do partner with a variety of nonprofits, both to bring in new clients as well as provide support. Providence Place is one of those. Rape Crisis Center is another partner of ours. United Way is an excellent partner. They kind of house a whole variety of services.
Right.
But yeah, we one of our programs is actually the network, the For Her network, and that's something we're still building out. And we probably have, I don't know, over 100 partners, but we're beginning to more formalize those partnerships, not just to provide services, but also to provide places of employment. So if you're a business owner and you're looking at giving someone a shot that's exiting the industry, or someone who's at risk that just needs employment, entry-level employment, that's something else that we're looking at expanding, is our partnerships to help employ women. So we're not just providing some of the services and the resources.
We're actually putting something practical underneath it.
Yeah.
So, but now I would imagine it would be kind of difficult, because I know that it's like reforming a drug dealer. He's used to having thousands of dollars in cash all the time, and you give him a 9 to 5 that pays $10-15 an hour. It's a big shock. I would imagine you really get the same thing with the sex worker.
Yeah, I would say the pay varies based on the worker and where they're working and what they're doing. So sometimes the pay gap isn't as large as you would maybe imagine. If it is, it's reframing and looking at their budgeting. One of our classes that we're going to be offering this year is a budgeting class. So helping someone realistically look at, what are the resources that I have? What jobs am I looking at? What am I eligible for? And how can I live within those means? I mean, some of that is just practical, life skills, and learning those things as we're helping someone transition. So it's not such a shock.
Right, with the real estate end of it too, maybe Saha and those are big things. And then finding out what other programs for utilities and helping to bring the bills down into a manageable format.
Exactly. Yeah, we do have partners for housing, groceries, utilities. A variety of just the basic needs.
So that must feel really good when you've worked with somebody and you know where they were, and then you bring them to a place where they're happy, they're content, they're able to provide for their family. That must be a very rewarding experience.
It is, and they're the one who puts in the most amount of work. Someone who comes to us who is ready and is saying, I want to take this next step. They're the ones who are investing the most in their own life, and we get to have the privilege and the honor of coming alongside and witnessing like this beautiful transformation. And you can't help anyone who doesn't want the help or isn't ready. But man, when someone is ready and willing, it's an amazing, rewarding feeling, knowing that you've helped someone along their journey just to become more of who they truly are, right? They're moving away from this pseudo life, this fake life, this life that isn't really fulfilling, that's glamorized, but in moving into
even the movies. What was it? The J-Lo put together that movie with Hustlers, I think it was. And anytime you've got a situation like that works detrimentally opposite of what you're trying to do.
And it's important. I mean, I think you do what you know. A lot of all of us, we do what we know to do and what we've been given. But then as you grow and you learn, you understand, okay, there are more resources, there are other things, there's other avenues that I can take, and we want to help those people who are looking for other avenues.
That's awesome.
And there's certainly mixed reviews on the JLO.
Is it? I haven't seen it, so I just saw the trailer for it. So tell the people that are ready and the people that have folks that want to be able to tell them to contact you, tell them how to get a hold of you.
Yes, please visit our website at iamforher.org. That's iamforher.org. That is our website, and if you want to volunteer with us, there's tons of volunteer opportunities, from putting together gifts to walking alongside our women as an advocate, as a volunteer advocate, to helping us in the office, helping us with social media. There's just a variety, both on the program side and in kind of the boring office tasks. They can get involved by volunteering or by offering a professional service to our organization.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Kate.
Thank you so much.